Welcome to the Church of Jesus Christ. I pray that God blesses you this morning. I'm always in the swirl of pre-meeting, wondering, am I putting my words forward, or am I channeling God's Spirit? So I hope you have a prayer in your heart that this is as God would intend it. Yesterday, I worked all day. It was just an absolutely wonderful day. I threw my back out on the morning of the funeral for Brother Dwayne. And Brother Dwayne is not with us, by the way. Today he's at the baptism for Elena Jackson. But it still is a little tender now, and I think I overdid it yesterday. I cut the grass, I worked in the garage, I did everything that I missed for the last almost 2 weeks. And so I thought, I know, let's do all catch up on one day and see how my back is sustained. It didn't do well, so I'm a little tender today, but I got a ton done. The bulk of that was in my garage. And what I was doing is sifting through and eliminating. I don't know if you've had that experience before, but for anyone who grows up middle class and is a saver or a retainer, as I am, against Candace's will, I might say, I was in clean mode, which was, I'm sure, glorious for her. And so I found that by pitching all of this, I can see clear already in my garage. I'm not anywhere near done, but I can already see clear. The elimination of stuff has that effect. Remember that thought, okay, as we go forward. In my life, my spiritual examples have been many, but my roots are in one person, and that spiritual example was my mother. She was a woman totally dependent. She was not a single mother, but found herself raising children by herself more often than not. My father traveled for a living for a great time period. And then even when he opened his own business, he would be gone 12 to 16 hours a day, trying to get that business going. So having that situation in life, she was often by herself. And so these are my words, not hers, but maybe she thought she had no one a lot of the day to take care of everything, take care of life, take care of the house, everything. And so I was raised by a woman very dependent on God. I know that I was a young person when she gave herself to the Lord. I know that I was there before and after her commitment to God, but I have no recall to that because it happened so young in my life. So I only remember this woman completely dependent on God. I've told the story where later in life she said to me, "Isn't it great to be dependent?" To which I answered unknowingly to what the question meant, "No, I don't want to be dependent." She said, "No, you're missing what I'm saying. I mean dependent on God." And the statement or the answer wasn't foreign to me, but I was not dependent on God like my mother was. And her way is better. I want to make sure that we point that out. I've said this before that my independence is based on success and not failure. What I mean by that is if something breaks or something's wrong or we need immediate action, I step in and my first instinct is to fix. I'm a male, and this is what males do. We fix. If any females out there ever say to their male companions or friends, "This is my situation," note that the male will immediately fix your situation, whether you want them to or not, whether you're soliciting their help or not. We fix. It's what we do wrongly at times. So my wrong behavior in fixing is it creates some bad behavior, which is independence rather than dependence. Our theme this morning is going to focus on that. Give you an example of my mom and the ability to learn, okay, and one's ability to learn. 1976, I went to camp out with my brother. We drove up to Pennsylvania, or 1975, we drove up to Pennsylvania where I asked for my baptism, and they said, "Go back to your branch, and if you still feel to, get baptized back home." They saw an immature, spiritually unsound person who was not ready. Good wisdom on their part. And had I attended church, that next year back at my branch, I probably would have been baptized, but they didn't see me a whole lot the next year. Went back to a camp out in 76, flew this time, and gave myself to the Lord. The next year, I stirred up in my mom the desire of the last couple of baptisms. I said, you've got to come to camp. So we drove up there in 1977 in a 1970 Pinto, Ford Pinto. And anyone who knows the history of Pinto know that from the time we left our house to the time we arrived back at home, we were in danger at all turns. Anything could happen in a Pinto. So we drove up in this Pinto, and after camp was over, we loaded up our car and we were ready to come home, and it wouldn't start. And I knew we had been AAA members for years and years, and that's why I suggested, let's call AAA. And I remember her putting her hand on my knee. Doug, let's pray. So we had just cranked that. I don't know if we flooded it or not. I know we worked the battery even deader than where it was when we started. So sitting in this car, we're watching the brothers and sisters and friends just drive away from camp. We're not asking for help from anyone. But the parking lot that was at one point full is now not so full. The help that once was there is now at least half, maybe a quarter. And she's calmly resting her hand on my knee saying, let's pray. So we bowed our heads and my mom prayed. I remember that she touched the key as she began to pray. She said, and she offered a prayer for the Lord that he would heal the car. And I can't tell you that I was at the same place as her. I was just watching. And I was still watching when she turned her hand and the car started up immediately. Not a sputter, not a struggle. And we went from Philadelphia, just north of Philadelphia, all the way back to Florida in that 1970 Pinto. Healed. Not just started, but she prayed healed. That car was healed. Can we learn from that? Do I have the thickness of skull? Do I have the ability to learn from that? So Candace and I go to a camp, I think in 1982, maybe 1983. And we're going to test faith as well. We go in a 1974 Volkswagen Bug with Candace and I and our dog Pee-wee all the way up to camp out. It's 8 years old now. I think it's 74 Bug, and it runs like a bug runs. And when you drive 1,000 miles plus, it's a long drive up. It's a longer drive back if it starts sputtering at 11 o'clock at night in Georgia. And the sputter turned into just missing. The sputter then turned into lights going off, electric going off. And the miracle is for us, all of this happened right near an exit, where exits were probably 20 miles apart. And so we were already, oh, thank you, Lord. At least we can sleep at wherever this is. We'll find a motel or a hotel, or truth is we probably were going to sleep in the car. We didn't have money to stay at a hotel, but we pulled off the road and sputtered, poop, spit, no lights, no anything. And there was one, it's 11 at night. There's one gas station open. But the chances it's a service station are less than I don't know what the numbers are, but we're okay. Well, at least get it to a gas station where we can even sleep in the car safely under lights. We get there, and I go inside and ask about the situation. Do you even work on foreign cars? Do you work on Volkswagens? And this is the 11 o'clock shift. Remember that. This is not the mechanics. This is not people who are normally there. And the fellow there said, well, let me take a look at it. Looked at it, he goes, I might know what that is. He went in the back, came out, he said, this was the only, whatever it was. I think in Mermaid, they called it a whatchamacallit or whatchamajob or whatever they said. So he found a whatchamacallit. I don't know what it was. I don't know cars. And he came out with this part. He said, it's the only one I had. That I think that's what may be causing this. He said, but I don't know that it's going to work on a Volkswagen, a 10-year-old Volkswagen. Goes under the hood, starts right up. Our miracle was not that I touched the key. Our miracle was not that the car was healed instantly. Our miracle was that it happened near an exit. Our miracle was that we went to the only gas station open. The miracle was that gas station was a service station. The miracle was that service station had the one single part, one on the shelf that fit our car. And we got home. Our miracle continued when we literally got home with change in our pockets. No credit cards, no cash, change in our pockets as we pulled up to our home in Pompano Beach. Dependence. Learned, not given, learned. I learned this from my mom. I saw her with her miracle car. I have a miracle car story now because of that. Our theme today is only believe. So the direct quote from the Word of God, and that's our theme. Only believe. There's a scripture in Philippians 4:13, I believe it is. I always get 4:11, 4:12, and 4:13 a little bit wrong, or at least shaky. But I think it's 4:13, and it says, I can do all things through Christ who strengtheneth me. I don't interpret that the way I've heard most, maybe at least many, if not most, interpret it. I don't believe in my interpretation, I don't believe it necessarily means I can do anything through God. I don't disbelieve that fact, by the way. But at age 66, if I believed I could dunk a basketball, I don't think it's going to happen. Okay, I don't think that's going to happen for me. So I've always interpreted that verse a little differently. I've interpreted, rather than I can do anything through Christ, is the option to invite Jesus Christ into everything in my life. I can do everything. I can do anything through Christ. Bring him into the situation. So that's how I've always interpreted it. The reason I tell you that is I don't necessarily interpret only believe maybe like most do. I don't know that it's a kind of simplistic statement to say, if you'll just believe. That's not how I interpret that. I interpret that to be like my garage, stripping everything else away. Pulling all your solutions away. Pull all your theories away. Only believe. Try to get to where you're a clear thought, a clear thinking to just believe, just trust. My confusion comes, like my garage, with all the options. Only believe, but if nothing happens, you have doctors. Only believe, but if this doesn't happen, you have this. Just let go of everything and only believe. Isn't it great to be dependent? My mother said to me, teaching me a life lesson that I'm still trying to learn. The older that I get, the more solutions I find, like hanging up another hammer in the garage. Here's another solution. If that small hammer doesn't work, I can use this hammer. If that doesn't, I'll use this. And that's what happens in situations in my life. I have all these options, and it's hard for me to find belief because I have these other substitutes, surrogate answers. I think Jesus Christ was saying, only believe. I'm going to read you from a chapter. There is a sister chapter to this. Okay, we're going to read from Mark 5. Luke 8 offers a lot of the same story. I am not a Mark guy. I don't read Mark as I probably read the book of Mark least of the four Gospels. I don't know why I went to this chapter. I had no idea why. And then I was praying and studying this chapter. I thought, oh, I was supposed to be here. This is my landing spot. Luke records a couple things differently than Mark does. Two people, eyewitness to the same thing, recorded a little different. It's how it is. If we both see something occur and we take separate testimonies in two different rooms, we're going to find that the two stories may not. They'll align generally, but they probably won't align to detail. That's what I think of Luke 8 and Mark 5. So we're going to read Mark 5. Mark 5 starts a little differently than Luke does. It does start with them getting off a boat. Jesus Christ and his disciples get off a boat, but Luke records what happens in that boat. And so this amazing chapter 5 is, again, as amazing as Luke 8 is. It's filled with stories. Probably someone somewhere should preach a sermon called A Day in the Life and use Mark 5 or Luke 8 as the fodder for that sermon, because if this is what the life of Jesus Christ was like, I can't imagine just the swirl of what he did. Often he would tell people, don't tell anyone I healed you. And you'd think, why does he do that? When you read a chapter like this, you find out. Because everywhere he went, he was pulled this way and pulled that way. His time was never his own, but even more so when the victory stories started to get out and they started to yank him different directions. And maybe he knew, I want to be careful how I say this. Maybe he knew he was being used. You know, I don't know that everyone necessarily would follow him, but they would utilize him. And so maybe that was part of it. I don't know. I am not his attorney. I should not try to be. Luke 5 or Mark 5. Let's read some. Rather than reading the first part of this, because this chapter is, I think, 40 verses or so. It starts with a situation with a man who is attacked by different spirits. You've heard this story. This is the story of Legion, meaning multiples. There were multiples of demons in this man. And Jesus Christ goes to the tombs, finds this man. There's great dialogue. This is your homework assignment. I hope you're understanding. I'm not going to read all of this. I just want you to know what happened. And he healed this man. In the middle of this, the demons spoke to him and said, get away from us, leave us alone. And he sent them remember this story, sent them into the sheep when they go plummeting over the cliff. 2,000, I think it says. The evil that was in this man inhabited 2,000 animals and sent them over. PETA somewhere is not happy with this story, but that's the story, and I'm just reporting it today. So again, that's the first 20 verses, almost the first half of this is that story. They get off the ship, he's thronged, and Luke records it that they're tearing at him to get him to follow them. And the first thing he comes across is this situation. So this is a day in the life of Jesus Christ. Goes on to meet a man. And again, I know that I was supposed to read Mark rather than Luke today because Luke records the timing of this a little different. And I like this account because I find it a little stronger to the story. So in verse 21, it says this, and when Jesus was passed over again by the ship unto the other side, got back in the ship, they went across and they landed somewhere else. Much people gathered unto him, and he was nigh unto the sea. And behold, there cometh one of the rulers of the synagogue, Jairus by name, Jairus. Jairus is how I pronounce it. And when he saw him, he fell at Jesus Christ's feet and besought him greatly, saying, my little daughter lies at the point of death. I pray thee, come and lay hands on her that she may be healed. And Jairus went on to say, and she shall live. And Jesus went with him, and much people followed him. So let me pause. So his day starts with demons, 2,000 times, okay? The amount of a bad day for most of us. 2,000 times stronger, and heals this man. And this man went off, by the way, testifying to the goodness of God and became a living witness for the power of Jesus Christ. Gets back in the boat, lands again, and he's met immediately by this throng, and this man, Jairus, meets him and lays this heaviness on him. My daughter is dying. My daughter probably has already died, is how Jesus Christ hears this. And he said, let's go to her. So Jesus went with him. He's following Jairus to his home. And much people followed him. So again, everywhere he goes, this throng follows everywhere he goes, and thronged him. Verse 25, and a certain woman, which had an issue of blood 12 years, and suffered many things of many physicians, and had spent all that she had. Now let's stop there. So now amongst the thronging that he's in, the swirl, all the things in my garage, remember that. Amongst all that's going on, this woman finds him. 12 years has been sick, has tried every physician that she can. Many physicians, I think is the phrase that was used. And spent all that she had. And the result, and was nothing bettered. Nothing has worked to the positive for her. Imagine the desperation. Imagine the hopelessness of this woman. She hears that the healer is in town. Maybe she hears he just healed a man possessed. I don't know what her story was. I don't know why she came to him. But 12 years of failure brought her to this place. The people are thronging her. And nothing was bettered, but rather grew worse. So wherever she was 12 years ago, she's worse now. Not better. She has no money left. There's not a physician that's going to talk to her. She is lost. And it's so symbolic that she's amongst the throng of people. That is her life. I am just one of thousands, forgotten, overlooked, probably discarded. And when she had heard of Jesus, again, I mentioned that. What does that mean? I don't know. Meaning, I don't know how she heard of him and what that story was and what brought her to him. For when she had heard of Jesus, came in the press behind and touched his garment. What we know is it wasn't just the garment, because Luke records it a little differently. Touched his garment, for she said, if I may but touch his clothes. Luke records her words as, if I just touch the hem of his garment. I remember the first time I read that, it was in a service. It was in the first time I read it with clarity. Sorry, let me be sure I finish my sentence. When I read it with an understanding, I thought, to touch the hem, she has to go all the way down. She has to, this is a throng of people up here touching him, pulling on his garments, yanking him, come this way. I have something to tell you. Think of what that throng felt like, him trying to get through. She goes down to the ground and touches the hem. So I have her on her knees, begging, in a prone position, touching the hem of his garment. That's not how Mark records it, but that's how Luke does. So I'm bringing that in. I'm going back to verse 28. For she said, if I may but touch his clothes, I shall be whole. That's what Jairus had said too. Remember that? If you come, he'll be made whole, or she'll be made whole, my daughter. And straightway, and immediately, and upon touching him, the fountain of her blood was dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of the plague. Who is walking with Jesus? I want to remind you, our story is not about Legion. Our story is not about the woman with the issue of blood. Our story is about Jairus. Jairus met him at the ship. Jairus is taking him to his house. This woman and this throng interrupt that walk. Jairus is witnessing all of this. And Jesus, immediately knowing in himself that virtue had gone out of him, turned him about in the press and said, who touched my clothes? And his disciples said, look at the throng around you, and you say, who touched me? He looked around about and to see her that had done this thing. But the woman, fearing and trembling, knowing what was done in her, came and fell down before him and told him all the truth. And he said, daughter, thy faith hath made thee whole. Go in peace and be whole of the plague. Disciples saw it, but Jairus saw it. Jairus, who is his walking with him, trying to get him to his house, knowing the daughter is dying, may be gone by now, is still trying to get him to this place, clinging to hope, clinging. And while he yet spake, there came from the ruler of the synagogue's house certain which said, Thy daughter is dead. Had he not healed her, had he not been pulled to Legion, had the people not thronged him, I'm sure this is all what Jairus is thinking. Had all of these things not happened, we'd be at my house by now. If he had taken the shortcut like I told him to do 2 miles ago, we'd got through the woods and we'd be at my house. But instead, she perished. The report comes in while they're in this celebration. Your daughter has passed. Thy daughter is dead. Why troublest thou the master any further? There is no hope. That's the report from the house that interrupts their walk. One more interruption. And as soon as Jesus heard the word that was spoken, he said unto the ruler of the synagogue, Be not afraid. Only believe. Took that hammer off. I don't need that one. Took that one off. Got that box out of my garage. Cleaned this off. Whittled it down to what I needed, not what I wanted. He's telling Jairus, just believe. Don't listen to these stories. Don't listen to what you're hearing. Don't listen to any of that. Only believe. Be not afraid. Don't fear. And he suffered no man to follow him. And Jesus Christ suffered that no one else come with him, save it be James, Peter, John, and that's all, and Jairus. He says, everyone else, stay here. I'm just going with this inner sanctum of my followers, and we're going to go forward. And he stops everyone. Why? It's cleaning out the garage for Jairus. He's taking the swirl away. He's taking the throng away. Only believe. I got to get you where you're right. It's us. We're Jairus. I don't know what your situation is. I don't know what is in your life right now. Only believe. It doesn't look good for you, maybe. Our experience this week was, my baby's not getting out of Jamaica. Flights are canceled. Now, all those flights that are canceled had people on them that have to fill on Thursday and have to fill on Friday. These are my thoughts. This is not what I ever said. Candace will tell you, oh, Doug said every time, oh, no, they're going to get out. That's what I said. Only believe. Don't look at the facts. Don't look at the details. Don't try to answer for God. Just believe. Don't try to figure it out. It's not our job. And by the way, I go outside my responsibility all the time with God. I don't just ask him for something. I tell him what I want. I even help him and tell him how to get it done. Only believe. What an incredible phrase. Fear not, only believe. In a Sunday service, in a pew, in a seat, in your home, kind of easy to believe this. Kind of easy to say, yeah. Put yourself in the situation. Jairus, all the way to this point, had to be frustrated. Now she's touching his hem. That's time away. Today I forgot my computer. I forgot my laptop, and I had to run home. There's 2 lights between me and home. How many of those 2 lights do you think I caught? If you said 2, you got it wrong. Because I had to come back the other way too. 4 lights. We never catch 4 lights. And I didn't factor until just this moment. Only believe. Don't think that the facts and the details in the situation has anything to do with God. That's why Jesus said to Jairus, fear not, only believe. All of this other stuff is only going to make the story better. And he cometh to the house of the ruler of the synagogue and seeth the tumult. You know what that's like? Have you ever been somewhere where something tragic has happened? It's just a swirl. It's just confusion. And them that wept and wailed greatly. If you remember, the traditions are they would rip their clothes and cry out to God. I can't imagine what he walked into. My sarcastic mind, if I walked into it, would be, oh, you're going to be sorry you ripped that one. That was a nice shirt. That's a wasted rip right there. Because something's about to happen that none of you are expecting. That's a whole lot of carrying on. All of it wasted. Because that weeping and wailing is going to turn to joy like you've never known. And when he was come in, he said unto them, why make ye this ado and weep? Do you think he knew why? I think he knew why. He was making one last point. I am the Son of God. Only believe. The damsel is not dead, said Jesus Christ, but sleepeth. Now think about their reaction. Do you think anyone's buying that? Anyone? What was their reaction to that statement? The damsel is not dead, but sleepeth. Verse 40, and they laughed him to scorn. Mocked him. My sensitivities, I'd have crumbled right there. Oh, well, I've forgotten what I was here for. No one likes me. I just crumble right there. They laughed him to scorn, but when he had put them all out, this is not going to work. I don't need naysayers in this room. Out, all of you, out. When he had put them all out, and he taketh the father and the mother of the damsel, and them that were with him, Peter and James and John, he wants believers in that room. Sometimes when we come to anoint, that's my thought. You have to believe. Remember the first time that we prayed for and anointed Ashley for her pregnancy, and Hattie was the result. She had to believe, and she did. So Jesus Christ said, all those who are going to mock, all those who are going to laugh, all those who are going to scorn, all those who are going to doubt, out. I don't know that this is the recommendation that you send. If you don't believe, go out of the room. I don't know that I would ever have that boldness, but he understood this was ugly. He walked into something terrible. And then that were with him and entered in where the damsel was lying. And he took the damsel by the hand and said unto her, Talitha cumi, which is interpreted, damsel, I say unto thee, arise. My question is this: if you're in that room, do you believe that that child who is dead is going to get up under the direction of that word, arise? Because his direction was this: follow me and only believe. I don't know if she's going to get up. Stop! But they said she was dead. Stop! Only believe. That takes some serious cleaning out. End of yesterday, I was exhausted from cleaning out stuff. This is cleaning out mental imprints, cleaning out negativity, cleaning out questions, cleaning out doubt, cleaning out intellect. Intellectually, this does not make sense. How is it that the report is in, that her flesh is cold, that there is no breath, there is no heartbeat, and he's going to say, arise? Only believe. I don't know what situations are in your life. I don't know how they look. I don't know if you have made a great case. It's impossible. He would say this, fear not, only believe. Damsel, I say unto thee, arise. And straightway, immediately, urgently, quickly, the damsel arose and walked, for she was of the age of 12 years, and they were astonished with a great astonishment. And he charged them straitly that no man should know it, and commanded that something should be given to her to eat. Feed this child. She's been laying there for a day. She's been laying there for 2 days. Get her fed. And he left. His direction was simple. His direction was direct. His direction was correct. Only believe. He didn't say it was easy. He said it was possible. He wouldn't have given that direction if it was impossible, but it was nearly impossible. As that man walked, do you think it was an accident that he witnessed this woman of 12 years of a sickness? And his daughter was 12 years old. She's been sick as long as my daughter's been alive, and now my daughter's gone, and she was healed instantly. All of that to help him clean out his garage. All of that to get him focused. All of that to take the fear away. All of that to get him to a place where the Father could only believe. I present to you today your life. I want you to know this is your life. You have evidence and proof and reason not to believe. It's what life is. And he counters that with a power that is unmatched. We have to just trust. Sister Jennifer Donkin, only believe. Brother Jim Miller, only believe. Kylie and Laura Obradovich, only believe. Whatever your situation is, know that all your doubts are wrong. All your questions are wrong. All your concerns are wrong. And I don't say wrong too often because I understand them. But relative to what he offers, they're wrong. So what's the substitute for all of that? Only believe. May the Lord bless each one.